Hey friends, Beth here from Como Park Zoo and Conservatory, coming to you from our seasonal pollinator exhibit. Here at our facility, we weave together the amazing stories of plants and animals and how they live in their ecosystem by the combination of our zoo and our conservatory. But no place illustrates this better than here in the pollinator exhibit, where we talk about the amazing harmony of plants and animals together and how they're able to survive. This is a really essential thing for us because everything from beautiful blooms to the food on our table comes from plants and their pollinators. So it's so important for us to learn all about them and their amazing relationships. We were so excited to share this with you that thanks to the Clean Water, Land, and Legacy, we are able to bring to you a 15-part series throughout this summer so we can share with you these amazing relationships. So tune in every weekend so you can find out what all the buzz is about. As we look at some of these beautiful flowers that we're still planting here in our seasonal exhibit, you can probably see some really amazing structures and shapes and colors. And these are all for pollination. Pollination is a way that plants reproduce. The goal for all plants is to produce the next generation, but they all go about it slightly different ways. Some plants, like mosses and ferns, don't produce flowers, pollen, or seeds. Some other plants do produce seeds and produce them through pollen in their cones, like gymnosperms, such as firs, spruce, and pines. Other plants, such as angiosperms, produce beautiful flowers that they use to move pollen from male parts of the flower to female parts of the flower. And that's what we're going to be focusing on throughout our series, is these beautiful blooms and the animals that help move those pieces of pollen around, which is pretty cool. Now, as you're looking and you're seeing these flowers, you might not be able to imagine a world without them, but flowers haven't been around forever, and they did evolve after a very interesting time. There's some evidence that flowers might have shown up as early as the Triassic or Jurassic period, but the solid evidence that we have first cropping up in the fossil record of flowers is in the early Cretaceous. During this time, flowers started to have an amazing radiation event, and by the mid-Cretaceous, there was such a wide diversity of flowers that today, flowering plants make up the largest group of plants on the entire surface of the Earth, which is pretty awesome. You can see some amazing structures and colors, and there's a wide diversity of shapes and styles, which we'll be focusing on throughout our different series throughout this year, throughout the summer. And you can see some pretty cool plants. You might wonder what sort of relationships they might be forming. And everything from vanilla to chocolate, one of my favorites, rely on pollinators of different shapes and sizes to do the job for them. And we're going to be exploring them. But first, let's take a look and see how pollination works with a very large-scale model. So if we take a look at a flower, our expanded giant flower of science here, to talk about the different shapes and structures, if we open up our flower, we'll see those different parts. Here you can see the male and female parts of the flower, which do different jobs to help move the pollen around. So here we have the male part of the flower, the stamen, and at the end of this long, thin filament, we have an anther covered in pollen. That pollen might get picked up by someone, maybe the wind, or maybe a friendly bee, or a person in this case, and moved over to the female part of the flower. It lands on a sticky pad called the stigma, and from there it will travel all the way down the style, the long skinny part, down to the ovary, where inside are ovules, which are fertilized to become the next seeds of the next generation of beautiful blooms, which is pretty special. Now, this is a really basic shape, and some of the earliest flowers, like magnolias in the early Cretaceous, had a pretty simple shape. But over time, as those relationships changed, we got some really amazing specializations, and we're going to be checking out some of those throughout our time. Some examples that you can find, even in maybe your own backyard, include thin, tiny groups of inflorescences, big, bulky flowers to attract lots of different pollinators, long, thin tubes, and even some that are very small to fit very specific feeding critters. There's bright colors and beautiful blooms, and some even come in the shape of buckets, forcing their pollinators to get inside and pick up a load of pollen before they move on. Some flowers, like orchids, will even have some pretty clever relationships to trick pollinators into doing their jobs for them. And we're going to be exploring that later on in our series. Now, if plants are able to reproduce without pollinating, why do they even bother producing these beautiful blooms with big, bright colors and delicious smells and tasty treats like nectar to feed someone? Seems like a lot of work. So why would plants even bother with all of this? There's a good reason. By mixing your genetics with other individuals, you're able to get a wider set of diversity, which means that you're more robust when facing different predators, new changing environmental conditions, or even make you more resistant to disease. So it also makes them so beautiful and bright and diverse, which is something that even we humans have selected for, creating bright, beautiful hybrids through cross-pollination. So I think that diversity looks and smells pretty sweet. Throughout our season in our pollinator garden, you'll get a chance to see some amazing pollinators come in to join us. You'll also get a chance to see some beautiful flowers, both from in your own backyard and from all around the world, and learn about their cool relationships. We'll be exploring those throughout our series and watching how our garden grows. And you can learn more and participate as well. If you'd like to learn more about pollinators, there's lots of great resources that you can check out. You could take a look at some awesome books, perhaps using curbside services in your local library. In our resources, we'll be having these accessible both on our website and in the description of this video. We'll have a list of books that you could try to check out online or through curbside service, including The Amazing Life Cycle of Plants, The Reason for a Flower, different flowering plants books from seed to plant, and my personal favorite, The Magic School Bus, Plant Seeds. And if you want to explore, you could even test your science knowledge with our worksheet, where you can cut out and build your very own flower and see if you can remember and identify all those different parts. If you have a backyard or a community garden, take a chance to make your own observations. Make a journal and try to record what you see and observe. You can record the pollinators you see visiting your favorite flowers, the different smells and sights and textures and shapes, and who knows, you might be a great pollinator friend. So stick around and visit us in future weeks to see what all the buzz is about. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great day.